This is our Ketchikan Public Library Advisory Board quarterly meeting, Wednesday, July 9th, 2023, 2025. Oh, those 2023s. What I'd like to do before we call to order, at the top of the agenda is the preamble to the Constitution. I thought it'd be fitting, since we did just celebrate the July 4th Independence Day celebration, that we read it during this meeting. So I would like to do that. So, preamble to the U.S. Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessing to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And just as a quick reminder, the reason why, as a body, we decided to put this up here was just as the guiding principle and celebration of how important education and knowledge is, because it was these words and the words within the Declaration of Independence, which were also very well crafted, were the thing that greatly upset the Crown. So, if we could call to order. Roll call. Roll call. Yep.
Let's see. Grant Echohawk.
Present.
See, Jack Finnegan.
Here.
Nina Hops.
Here.
Sherry Montgomery. Here. See, Kate Covers is not here. Charlie Arnson.
Present.
Diane Lilchgren.
Here.
See, June Dahl.
Here.
Sophia Pilgrim. And so that's everybody who's here.
Perfect, thank you. And we do not have any new board members, correct? So we'll go on to item 3, which is our Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect, thank you. And I would also like to do a land acknowledgement. We are on Tlingit land, and we would like to acknowledge and give honor and respect to the traditional landowners, the Tlingit elders, and past, present, and future generations. We honor the relationship that exists between Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian peoples. We are in beautiful country, and thanks to the nations who have cared so well for it over these many millennia. So if I now moving on to item number 5, the approval of agenda, if I can get a motion to approve.
I move, Chair, that we approve the agenda as presented.
Perfect.
I'll
Motion and second, thank you. And any discussion on that item? No? Okay, I'll roll.
See, oh gosh, I forgot to do that. Oh, never mind. Jack.
Yes.
Nina.
Yes.
Sherry.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Charlie.
Yes.
Diane.
Aye.
June.
Aye.
Sophia.
Yes.
It is unanimous.
And Grant.
For items like this, we could probably do, what is the without objection? So we'll probably do that for
Okay, by
Without-
acclamation.
something
Correct.
like that, yeah.
Okay.
But
Rules
rather
are
than-
in here somewhere.
Yeah, so like for the approval of if there's no conversation or additions, and same thing with the
Mhm.
approval of the previous meeting minutes, I don't think a roll is really necessary for those, unless there's any objection to that. Okay. All right, so item number 6, approval of April 9th, 2025 meeting minutes. And can I get a motion?
Move to approve the April 9th meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, so without discussion, what is the proper term?
By acclamation.
By acclamation?
Without objection.
Without objection, the motion is approved. So item number 7, do we have any correspondence?
I do not.
Okay, great. Thank you. There was, I had a conversation with you this week, and there was some really good feedback that I'd love to share for the public. Would that be, can we fit it in here or somewhere else on the agenda, do you think?
I can fit it in here.
Yeah, let's put it in the correspondence, because it kind of was.
Yeah. So about a month ago, I was sitting at the circulation desk, and a visitor who was off a cruise ship came in. It was a pretty quiet day, and he asked if it was okay for him to walk around the library, and I said, "Oh yeah, that's fine." And so he took his time and walked around, and then about 15-20 minutes later, he came back up to the desk, and he asked whether we had had any complaints about our pride displays. And I said, no, I said, in previous years, we've had some people who were unhappy with them. But this year it's been pretty quiet. And he said, I just want to let you know, I felt very safe in this space. And I thought that was a lovely thing. And then he wished us well and went on his way. So yeah,
Thank you.
that was nice.
Yeah, and I think,
Yeah.
I think that personally, that is fantastic feedback, so thank you very much for sharing. Let's see, and for item number 8, public comments, we'll open up the floor for any public comments. There is a 3-minute limit per speaker, and so we will, open it up. Anybody want to rush in for public comments? And seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to item 9, which is reports. So we'll start with Friends of the Library, Ms. Neil.
Yes, so actually I missed the last Friends of the Library meeting because I was in Cincinnati on the Arts Council conference,
Oh.
or Arts Americans. And so from what I gather, June can relay any pertinent information. I was on the phone call. I via called in phone for part of it.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Um,
Anything to add?
Basically, we talked about our Saturday donations, which is the 4th Saturday of each month. And it seems like so far, starting in March, we've had a disaster every month on that
Mhm.
particular
Oh,
day.
no, yeah.
Whether it is the police have contaminated the area,
Oh,
there was a rock slide, and the others have been really crappy weather.
Record rainfall, record rainfall. Yeah.
So we're hoping July, August, and September are in a big improvement, so. But Nina, would you say that we have a pretty good supply of donated books at this point?
I would say definitely quality over quantity. And so last year we had a significantly fewer books, but we had similar sales, I would say, not really declined sales. So definitely people are being more selective in what they bring and more considerate. And so we're getting a lot of quality over quantity, which is easier to not have to move so many books.
That's true. That's true. Something that happened at the meeting, which surprised me, is one of the board members requested that an additional $500 be donated to buy books for the jail.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, thanks a lot. That's a lot of work. But anyway, I am looking forward to suggestions from people who have ideas about what books they think might work well at the jail. Both the men and the women at the jail like fantasy and science fiction kinds of things. Well, that's like eating Twinkies for 3 meals a day. So Tony Villegas, who had been the education director, had talked about books which can be used to better oneself. And so I try to do a mixture of books for pleasure and nonfiction. But interestingly enough, the inmates themselves ask for some very substantial books. But I'm limited. I have to buy paperbacks. I can't buy certain subjects. I'm trying to limit the price at thrift books for like around $5. And that's about what I pay for the books I bought so far. Sometimes I just come to a standpoint because I can't obtain a particular book in paperback. So if any of you have suggestions of books you think, I have books where I think everybody needs to read this book. let me know, because I'm out of ideas. So, Pat, can you think of anything else that happened?
No, it feels like too long ago.
Yeah. But things are perking along just fine.
Okay, great. Excellent, thank you. And from the city council, Mr. Finnegan, any updates?
Yes, thank you, Grant. Well, I know Ms. Tully informed the Library Advisory Board of this fact via an email correspondence, but I'll just say for the record, for the minutes, that the city council approved our requested change to Ketchikan Municipal Code 2.40.030B, striking the words on the second Wednesday of the quarterly months in which we meet. So we have a little more latitude now for scheduling those meetings. And that passed without really any discussion or concern. Once it was communicated to the council, they understood the nature of the request and approved it.
Well, thanks to the council. Oh, anything else?
Nothing further from the council, thank you.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Arnson, anything from the borough assembly?
I don't have anything that I prepared,
Yeah.
but will make note, and I'm sure we'll have conversations about it, that the Borough Assembly reduced the mill levy for the for the non-area wide service. That, based on estimates that I looked at, will still collect the amount of money needed. They'll still provide the money that is requested. And they've had about $335,000 in reserves in that fund. And so the idea really is that the government doesn't need to be holding on to that much of the taxpayers' money. And so we just want to tighten up the lines, I think, from the borough side.
Thank you. Anything else?
Relevant to the library.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then Ms. Pat Tully.
So I have my usual director's report in your packet. And I just wanted to highlight a few things. We are in the middle of our children's summer program. And so far we have exactly 350 children signed up. I counted each child that signs up signs a little flamingo paper that goes up on our window. And so I counted them all this morning, and there were 350 of them. So we're very happy with that. The teams don't like to assign things that go on any windows. And so we're not quite sure how many teams have signed up for the teen program. But it does seem to be perking on nicely. We had a really great event on June 25th. For 2 hours that afternoon, we had an event called Celebrating Community in You. And it was basically 20 different organizations in town that provide some kind of services to families and to children. And each organization had a table, and they had some activities for the kids and a lot of giveaways, and also a lot of information about what kind of services they provide. And I think it was a pretty nice day that day. So I was not expecting much of a turnout. And we ended up in those 2 hours having 273 folks come in, which was amazing. Everybody seemed to have a really good time. And hopefully they got some information that they didn't know about what was available to folks in this community. So we're very, very happy with that. The Children's Library teamed up with the early learning folks, I think at Community Connections, for Tummy Time at the end of the month, which is basically kind of a more sensory kind of version of story time. And then coming up on July 30th at 6 p.m., we have Japanese peace drummer. Takumi Kato. And they got in touch with us, I think, via the Kanayama program. So very excited about that happening. It should be an amazing performance. And then finally, my last thing is that in May, we did not have story time. We did not have baby time because our children's library staff visited classes in all the schools They estimate they told almost 2,000 students about the summer program. And so hopefully that means that we'll have even more kids who come in and sign up. So any questions?
Can you tell us again about the drummer?
Oh,
The
Yes.
date and
the date
And
is
time?
going to be July 30th at 6 p.m.
7:30 at 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Montgomery?
The community event,
Mhm.
me and you, was that a one-time deal? Or are you guys planning to do that again?
I think because it was so successful, I think we will do it again. I think it was a lot of work, so we may not be doing it. Somebody was asking us if we were going to do it monthly. I'm not going to do it monthly. But yeah, I think I would love to see it again.
Do you
because
think that it would be possible to maybe do it, maybe,
At a
like
different-
a different time of year, maybe like a spring break or, back to
Absolutely.
school style?
Yeah.
I just, this time of summer, it's,
Mhm.
you had a great turnout, but
Mhm.
all of the opportunities that you guys presented for
Sure.
children and families of the community,
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be just as well received if you had it kind of centered around the school year as
Yeah.
well. What were some of the local agencies and things that are involved in it?
Ooh, let's see, we had Peace Health, we had the Discovery Center, we had the museum, we had let's see, performing arts,
First City Players.
First City Players.
that you?
You attended.
I think I saw you in the newspaper.
I think we had Community Connections.
Mhm.
We were just trying to get as many different organizations.
So a
as
good
possible,
combination of
so-
public and private
Yes.
or and nonprofits.
Yeah.
Nice,
absolutely.
nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I'd like to see that happen again.
Okay. I'll definitely pass that on.
Adding on to the comment about the celebrating community event,
Mhm.
I really liked that event.
Mhm.
I liked the way it flowed. I felt like there was kind of like a path that they could go around, and it didn't feel like too crowded or anything. So I props to that event. I
Oh,
popped in
so.
just originally to see it,
Mhm.
and then found out I was actually working one of the booths. So yeah, that was that was on me. But they were like, "Oh, you're here," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm here." Oh, I need to be here. But it was, I think it was really good. And I think that if there was anything I would say in the future
Mhm.
is I wish there was just a tiny bit more space, because we were doing like games as well
Yeah.
as like there was people giving out information, but also like games
Yeah.
and such. And I just wish there was a little bit more space, kind of like specifically right outside the children's room, so that people could do, like, we had ring toss going and like games like that. And I just
Right.
wish there was a little more space, because kids were really getting into it, which was good. But that would be my only comment.
Cool.
Where was it located?
All over the library.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Were the fire department and police there?
Let's see. The police got there. The fire department, I think, had a call. So there was like a little bingo thing where I think people stamped
Stamps,
each
yeah.
organization that they visited. And we had more people coming up to us saying, so the fire department wasn't here. So that was fun. I was like, okay, that's okay. We understand.
And wasn't there like a trip with the bus that they?
Yes, so Borough Transit. So yes, they were able to get the tour of the bus, find out how to actually pay for the bus
Yeah,
and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's always very popular.
I
Yeah,
thought
those
that
bus
was a
things.
great idea, especially because now that the bus is doing free rides for like minors, I thought that was a really good idea to then show them what the bus is like if some people have like never gone on it, and then it's a good way to remind them that you can ride free on the bus. So I thought that was very smart marketing.
There's a bus available on site that the kiddos can go on?
Oh, well, there was a bus that came to the library and kind of just parked there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they're always very accommodating.
Okay.
The Borough Transit folks are great. So
I'm a huge fan of the Borough Transit.
Yes.
I agree. If you are able to do that again,
Mhm.
could we ask them if maybe we could like decorate the bus?
Ooh, I think they'd be totally into it.
I think that'd be
think-
fun.
Okay,
I
decorate the
I
bus.
was a young person or 50 years old.
Graham just wants to decorate a bus.
Very cool. Any other questions for Ms. Tillian? All right, thank you. Oh, yes.
Are we coming to this?
Oh, let's see, are we coming to this? I
Was
probably
this just
could come to that.
information?
Yes,
or-
let's see.
I just-
So
I just loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a really great brochure.
Oh, nice.
So
That's good. No, I
That's what I'm saying.
apologize. I didn't.
And
Think about
for the folks at home, Ms. Arnson is speaking about the Ketchikan Public Library, Ketchikan Gateway School District Libraries, collectively known as First City Libraries, correct?
correct.
Yeah.
And it talks about the network between the libraries and all that. So if there's any highlights you'd like to brag about, you're welcome to.
No, this was our trying to reach out in a different way, especially to families who use one of the libraries, just about what the libraries offer, and also what to do if you have an overdue, a lost or damaged book. Just reassuring people that, please come, please talk to us. We are, happy to work through with you any issues that you have with the library. We don't want people to be ashamed of coming to the library or nervous or feel like they can't kind of freely come and say, I mean, because a lot of people are like, I had a fire, I had to leave my home. And we completely understand those things and are willing to work. So hopefully this will be one step in the direction of people feeling a little more comfortable about coming to us with this.
I just really want to say kudos because to me, I looked through this and this answered a lot of the questions that we had at one of the meetings, right? And it was I really love information that is digestible in nice bites. So good job.
I will pass that on.
Yes.
And also a comment, I didn't hear you talk anything about it, but this reminded me of it. The library times that you've been doing out, I think at Fun Mountain and Point Higgins.
Oh,
I love that. I could say that a million times over. I know my brother and his friends, my youngest brother, have gone a couple of times and they've had it be really fun. I think Caitlin Jacobson, is that who's
Yep,
been doing
Catlin Jacobson.
Yes.
So that's actually the school district libraries.
Yeah.
So Catlin, who is the K-High librarian, she goes to Fawn Mountain, and I think it's Lara Powers, who is at Point Higgins. So this is especially for families who find it difficult to like get into town. So they have time when they can story time. I think they can get books, that kind of thing. So there's time each week at both of those schools where kids can get library service.
I thought that was a great summer thing as well. My house is within walking distance of Point Higgins, and so my mom is sometimes like, she'll get a call from my brother being like, "Can I walk up to Point Higgins so I can check out some books?" And one time he came home with like 5 Power Ranger books, and we were like, "Well, I mean, if it toots your horn, like, glad you got out today." It was also raining, so we were a little bit worried, but he tucked him in his rain jacket like a smart boy. So I heard about that, and I thought that was a really good summer outreach too, because some kids like they stay home when their parents are at work in the summer, and I thought that was a good way to kind of make sure everyone was kind of getting a chance to have library services during the summer.
Awesome. I'll pass that on too.
Anything else? Just my own input continues to be, wow, you guys are do an incredible job. So thank you. Yeah. Every quarter, I'm like, the next quarter. So thank you. Very, very cool. All right. So we'll go ahead and move on to item 10 with our very own Mr. Robert Rice, going to give us the juicy details on financial operations.
So.
Oh, budget.
Yes. And then So when I'm going through my PowerPoint, I got some animations. Do you got the clicker or can I?
Are they
put
like
your
chocolate
thing to
chip?
get set up?
And something else, I'm not sure.
Uh,
Cowboy cookies.
clicker.
Maybe oatmeal or something.
I think the
They're not
animations-
white macadamia nuts,
Yeah,
but
I
understand.
yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Hello, you guys.
Hi.
I feel like I know most of you folks. I don't think I've met Diane.
No.
Right? I don't think I've met you personally, so.
No, I stay away from finance guys.
I think that's probably a good.
It's nice to meet you.
Bring it up now.
Yeah.
Starting. Good evening. My name is Robert Rice. I'm speaking with you tonight on behalf of my position as the Ketchikan Public Library's Operations Manager. It's a privilege to have the opportunity to come speak with the Library Advisory Board. I thank you all for the time spent concerning yourself with library issues. Tonight, I plan to share a bit about myself and what my role is at the library. My presentation will be a bit less flashy than the previous presentations, but I hope to educate and entertain nonetheless. I'll start with a brief intro into who I am and how I got here, and then we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of library operations. Got a few more.
Wow. I'm
If
impressed.
I had the clicker, it would really be. All right, next slide. I was born and raised in Lima, Ohio. Growing up, I didn't have any strong memories or feelings about my local public library. My big library moment came during college. I started a work-study job with 11 hours per week my freshman year, and I was lucky enough to keep it all the way through graduations. In college was where I started to understand the importance of libraries as a public space more than just a place to get books. That circulation job, just a few hours a week, gave me something stable during the most chaotic years of my life. Looking back, it was absolutely necessary for me to take advantage of the quiet, sober spaces that the university library system provided. At that job, I developed library-specific customer service skills, and a seed was planted. I can do library work. You can hit one more button. And there should, that's my back from my college days. Moving along, I graduated in 2016 from the Ohio State University with a BA in philosophy. Not long after, my college sweetie took a job in Alaska at the Ketchikan Daily News. She was here for about a month. She texted me and said, "Come here, you'll love it." I bought a one-way plane ticket that October. I arrived in January of 2018, and I've been on the rock ever since. My first gig in Ketchikan was at the library. Within a month of arrival, I was picking up shifts as a library substitute. Working as a sub is a great way to learn how most of the library's policies and procedures work. Getting to know the staff and the patrons is an awesome way to be welcomed into the community. In summer 2019, I worked a 4-hour shift every single Sunday, working with longtime library assistant 2, Tammy Dinsmore. A few years later, Tammy retired, leaving the LA2 position open. When the pandemic hit amid budget crisis, the city council froze the position. When the position was unfroze in 2023, I figured this was my shot at a full-time library position. As the LA2, I got to learn much more about the back of the house work at the library. Working under Adult Services librarian Lisa Pearson, I completed a plethora of online training courses, including customer service, basic cataloging, interlibrary loan, and library management. Aside from supporting whatever the Adult Services librarian is doing, a big part of the LA2 job is managing the interlibrary loan services. I really enjoyed running the ILL system. It's like running your own little library within the library. As I settled into my role in that position, one of my roles is to provide backup to the office manager, Kelly Johnson. Over the course of a few months, bit by bit, Kelly taught me how to do payroll, process invoices, create purchase orders, and deal with daily cash duties. Kelly retired in March 2024 after 31 years of service to the city, leaving me in my position as LA2 to cover the most necessary parts of her job as well as mine. The job opening lingered for a while, so I applied. And that's the short story of how I came into my current role, one with a shiny new name, Library Operations Manager. So the first thing, what does a library operations manager do? That's a very vague title. You know, it can mean a lot of things. The biggest thing I do in my job is financial duties for the library. So one of the biggest things I do is do with the purchasing, procurement, payment, and accounting. Just to give you guys some backgrounds, before I start throwing around a bunch of jargon, there are two types of purchases made by the library, LIs and POs. LI is the city's shorthand for library, and these are purchases under $750. PO stands for purchase order. These are entered into the city's accounting program where they are subject to approval depending on amount from Pat all the way up to the city manager. All infos for LIs and POs are recorded and tracked on a spreadsheet that I keep called the book. Most purchases are one and done. Janitorial contract, office supplies from Walmart, a chair order, maybe a replacement fixture for something that was broken in the bathroom. It arrives, I pay the invoice, we're done. Book orders from vendors are much more complicated because they trickle in and often meld together. A $1,600 purchase order for 80 books might be open for 6 months or more while the books arrive. Often a box contains multiple books from multiple POs. It's my job to keep track of how much is being paid from each PO. I also perform and track other financial transactions such as check requests, budget transfers, and postage. I also keep a separate Excel spreadsheet to keep track of our grant funds. Once a week, usually on Sunday or Thursday, I clean up my book and calculate the amounts that remain to be spent for each open PO and LI. For POs, I can match my numbers to what the city has in its program. If everything is correct, we should have the same numbers down to the penny. This allows me to get a quick handle on orders that are lingering, ones that are almost finished, things I need to check in on. I need to have the info at my fingertips to be able to inform the librarians. For example, a librarian might ask, what's up with Stella and Marigold? I've been getting multiple requests lately, and we ordered it in May. And in a few seconds, I can look that up and I can tell whether it's back ordered, canceled, or in transit. The daily money, cash credits and deposits. So I process the library's incoming cash and credit payments daily. Each morning, usually first thing, because I think it's good to start with something positive to get out of the way, I balance the cash drawer against the previous day's register slip. If something is entered incorrectly, I find the staff member who made the transaction and make sure they know how it's supposed to be entered in our cash register. I keep all credit card receipts. Those get attached to a deposit memo that I send over to the city finance weekly on Wednesdays. At the end of the month, I count up the excess cash, coins, and checks and make a deposit at Wells Fargo. I believe that money goes straight to the general fund. Currently, I'm also tracking the amount of daily printing revenue we collect. That includes the public printer and the copy machine.
I'm a fan.
Gotcha, yeah. It's one of the things I think that we make our money back on the toner. We don't make the money back, but the city, which I'm trying to keep track of it. So as part of my daily cash duties, I also make sure the Friends of the Library money gets put in the appropriate cash bag. Usually once a month, the Friends treasurer will come pick up the money. This is mostly funds from the sale cart, but it also includes the donations and swag. That's the big financial duties. Moving on to office management. So the first bullet point is payroll. I'm responsible for making sure all library staff, part-time, full-time, and salary folks get their hours reported in time, and I have to get that data entered into the city's program. This gets done bi-weekly. Receivables. At the library, no one is allowed to open incoming boxes except me. When an Amazon or Baker and Taylor box arrive, I am the one who makes sure all the items in the packing list are actually in the box. I will then check the packing list against my original order, checking to see what items have arrived, what haven't. I then make sure that the letters, journals, items, supplies get to the appropriate staff member. Next one. Inventory tracking, which is office supplies, not inventory of books. One of the first things I did when I became the operations manager was to clean up the supply shelves so I could get an idea of what all we had stashed around. Having a mental map of what the library has will help me keep from buying excess items. There's some things file folders, rulers, clipboards, plain black pens, scissors. Library won't need to buy those for a long time. Some things we burn through, sticky notes, cash register rolls, tape. We go through a ton of tape. That's like really surprised me when I started. And then toner for the printers. We go through a lot of toner. It's my job to make sure that the staff has all the tools needed to do their jobs. Usually once monthly, sometimes more often if necessary. I'll send out an email asking if there's any supplies anybody needs from Walmart or TBC. I also keep a clipboard at the desk with the items that we're needing. When the list gets long enough, or if I have the time, I'll go get the stuff. Less regularly, I check in on our janitorial supplies. We buy toilet paper, paper towels, towel rolls, trash bags, and refill soaps. I get reminders from the janitorial staff that things are running low so I can get an order placed. Next point. Records retention and file maintenance. I'm responsible for making sure all the records kept by the library are maintained for easy reference. Any invoice paid on a computer via PDF gets saved to a folder and backed up on a flash drive at the end of the year. For things that are paid with a paper invoice, I make a copy and make sure it goes to the appropriate file folder. We have a lot of old files at the library. I just went through as a project and cleaned out some of the stuff that Kelly had in there. The city has a schedule that we're supposed to retain things. It went way back, so I got rid of a bunch of stuff as I thought was necessary or per the city's retention schedule. Next. Magazine subscription maintenance. The library has a lot of periodical subscriptions. Each division has their own budget and makes choices for titles based on their needs. On the 2024 periodicals list, which determines what magazines and newspapers and stuff we get this year. So we make the order in 2024 for the 2025 magazine. The library had 91 periodical subscriptions total. 74 are placed through EBSCO. EBSCO streamlines the process of placing magazine orders where we place one order, make one big payment, and they manage all the back and forth with each company. This includes the magazines and some newspapers. The subscriptions that are not placed with EBSCO are completely managed by me. I have to make the accounts with each company and manage the back and forth and check that everything's coming in. We do get a few periodicals as donations, such as the Alaska Quarterly Review, the Maritime Technology Reporter, and Edible Alaska. While the EBSCO system is appreciated, there's still a lot of time and headache that goes into making sure that we're receiving what we ordered and making adjustments as the year goes on. Magazines change schedule, raise prices, lower prices, and sometimes file for bankruptcy midway through your subscription. It's my job to stay on top of all this so the librarians can know what's going on and they can make better informed decisions about what to order next year. The periodical order changes every year. Each librarian drops and adds titles based on their circulation data and expertise. Once a new magazine arrives, one that's not on the shelf already, I'm the one that makes sure it gets put in our system and gets the serial control, which is basically like cataloging for books. They call it serial control for magazines. I don't know why. Once I get that set up, any staff member can check in new issues as they arrive. For example, we get Alaska Magazine monthly. Once I set up the title in our system, the system will anticipate 12 months worth of magazines. And within that title, each edition gets its own call number and own item number, which is a barcode. That allows patrons to check out each edition just as they would a book. I make sure the magazines are ordered, arrived, cataloged, and ready for the shelf. Thanks, Mark.
Can I jump in with a
Oh,
question?
yes, anytime, jump in.
With the periodicals, how do you determine which ones to subscribe to, or
So that's up to the librarians. So like
Okay.
the Lisa Pearson Adult Services, Amy does the children's, and then there's some outreach magazines that Rebecca takes care of.
okay?
They all have their own budget that they know what it is, and they kind of know what they've been ordering over the years. I look at their EBSCO amount and I will let them know, look, this is the changes. Something went from where we're getting, we get 10 issues a year, now we're only getting 6. Or like a newspaper, it goes from a daily to you're only getting 2 a week, but the price is the same. That's what makes the librarian get their gears changed. Maybe I don't want to order this, or maybe I want to switch that. And also circulation data. If something's never been checked out all year, it's probably gonna get pulled.
Right.
And we'll make space and got more money for something else. So,
Okay, thanks.
but there's certain things that just have been there for a long time, and I think they'll stay. When I first moved here to Alaska and came to that library, they had High Times.
Yeah.
And Guns and Alamo. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Yeah, the library. We don't have those anymore because of the circulation decisions that the librarians make. But I thought like, well, what a place. That's just something. So the next thing I do, or that would be on my job description, is the administrative assistant to the library director. It's not something that comes up too often, but anything Pat asked me to do that the senior librarians aren't able, I'll probably try to help with. I'm lucky if I get to fill in for her at the Friends of the Library meeting. Some tasks, such as the PLA grant, Pat and I work closely to make sure we have all the info and everything is getting submitted correctly, because I have the financial stuff kind of at my fingertips. I believe we will be working this next year on the federal E-rate application together. So that's another chance to learn some more about a big ticket
More
item
than
for the
you
library.
ever wanted to know.
Probably. Moving on to the next point. Friends of the Library, various duties. I'm the main contact with the Friends of the Library treasurer. I already talked about my daily cash duties where I get the funds from the carts and the swag and I put it into the bag. I also keep records, receipts of all purchases made from Friends of the Library's account, and all that stuff has to be accessible to the treasurer. This includes items approved and funded by the Friends of the Library, such as the water bottle filler, the Hoopla subscription, prizes for adult winter reading, and the Friends of the Library's 1% account at A&P. I am thankful for such a supportive group. They provide the cherry on top of the Library Services Sunday. Next point. Supervisor when needed. If all the other senior librarians are out, I will assume the role of the person in charge. It doesn't happen often, but I am able to put the schedule together and manage the people for a day or two if needed. Next point. Contact with the outside. I'm the library's main financial contact with City Hall, sometimes the HR department. The people at City Hall have been very patient with me in the last year. I do not feel afraid to ask stupid questions. I've reached out multiple times about a conundrum or issue I was having, and they were always there to help and really to simplify things because I overthink them. I am also the main contact for vendors. If someone has to be on hold with Amazon for 20 minutes or get on their chat, that really irks me. That's my job to process the refund and do that. If a librarian notices a book has a weird print and we need to get a replacement, I send out the email and make sure that we're getting the book, a new one sent. I will also reach out to school librarians and Friends of the Library members as needed concerning financial stuff. And then we'll move on from the office manager to some general duties. These are tasks that I do that aren't really related to the business of operations management. Some of these things, like working the circ desk, reference and phone duties, are things that all library staff do. So the first thing is the circulation desk. All library staff takes turns at the front desk. We call it desk one. I believe it's important that everyone from Pat down to the subs knows how to run the circ desk. I work an average of 1 to 2 hours a day on desk one. Some days I might work 3 hours there. Some days I might not work out there at all. At the front desk, you're greeting people, checking books in and out, setting up PC reservations, placing holds, locating items, and many, many other things that may come up. It's also the most visible and public-facing chair in the library, and this contact with the public, our patrons, is super important for the library as a whole. Working the front desk gives my brain a break from finance and allows me to work with the public, most of whom I look forward to seeing. The circ desk for me feels like home, since that's the kind of thing I entered library work doing. Reference assistance. Reference assistance is when you help someone find something that goes beyond a simple answer like telling them a location in the library, something that takes a little more work to find. It's usually in the form of an open-ended question such as, what is the best book for a new person that wants to learn about Ketchikan history? Or, this is one I got a couple days ago, I changed the author. I'm looking for an author that is like Michael Connelly, but that is not Michael Connelly. It's something that you might have to do a little research, or it's more of a hunt to get what the person is actually looking for. These can be a lot of fun. Being able to help someone find a book that is exactly what they needed or wanted is a very fulfilling experience as a librarian. Each staff member has a different experiences and tastes and may be able to assist in a way another can't. For example, if someone asks me about British murder mysteries, I'm going to go ask someone else that I know that would have more to say about that. Phone duties. All library staff take turns doing phone duty. This means for a specific hour, that staff member is responsible for answering the phone. The phone duty is done on top of regular work, which means that staff member is tied to their desk so they can be near the phone and computer. For me, that means I plan some work around phone duty. I won't do something that I need to be away from my desk, such as working on my staff picks display. Having a person assigned to phone duty gives the other staff a chance to be away from their desk to go focus on things that they need to get done elsewhere in the library. Another thing I do right as my phone hour starts is a walk around. I'm looking for people sleeping, eating, doing things that are outside of the patron code of conduct, but most often I just push in chairs and smile at people. Assisting with adult fiction cataloging. When I was the LA2, I took courses on basic cataloging and was regularly assisting Lisa with the cleanup on new fiction. A cleanup is when I go into the MARC record that comes with the book and I delete info we don't use, add info we do, and make sure the call number, spine labels, and all the other info matches what is actually on the physical item. Once all the info is correct and adjusted for the needs of our system, the book goes to processing, where the book gets dressed for the shelf. In my role as the OM, I don't always have time to help, and it's definitely not always needed. But when the carts are getting backed up and I'm able, I'll take an hour or two and clean up the MARC record for as many books as I can. The staff reads display. I was volunteered this display from Kelly before she retired. Each month I pick a theme and the staff selects an item or two from the library and shares a little blurb about it. This is a fun way for me to learn and the public to learn about the staff members. That gives me a little creative break from my other duties. And there's a special kind of enjoyment that comes when people tell you how much they enjoy browsing the picks. Every time I'm at desk one, I'm always looking down the way to see if someone's looking at my stuff in there. Are they going to pick the book up or are they not? I got one more, and it's a picture of my staff displays.
Ooh.
So those are a couple. I think the heart-stopping one was maybe the very first one that I did. And then the one, Once Upon a Crime, in the top left corner, that was last month's. So I've revamped it a little bit, and sometimes I have more time to put into the decoration, and sometimes I'm just getting it done. But I think the other librarians, it's always a blast to see what people come up with or how they interpret what my theme was. So, and then we can move on to the last slide. It's been just over a year now in my role as the operations manager. There's been a lot to learn, adjusting to the flow of the job and learning how governmental budgets work. Learning to manage the timing and priority of tasks is the biggest challenge. There are things I do daily, weekly, monthly, and a few things that just get done once a year. I'm starting to see my job as a whole and not just a list of tasks I need to do today. The overarching goal, when I first stepped into the OM position, I felt like a bean counter and I had lost some of my librarianism. Over time, I've begun to see my role as necessary to the operations so everybody else can just get to work, as I put in the slideshow, so that the other staff can go focus on the magic. So they don't need to worry about where these books are, or if it's stuff's getting paid, or what their budget line is. So that way they can just focus on the creative, or what programs are we doing, what books am I bringing in, or there's patrons I need to deal with, and I can do all that back of the house stuff so they can get to work. It's just for a fun fact, the difference between me and Kelly Johnson, the job changed a little bit when we did the swap. I don't work with teens, and I'm not a master cataloger. One more. Thanks for listening to my presentation. It was a lot quicker than I actually thought it would be. Is there any questions?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I always got a comment.
Yes, of course.
I don't know, whatever it is, like the energy that you bring, like that you guys have got to be having so much fun at the library because that sounds very exciting.
It's a fun crew to work for, and that feels like I'm just in any other job I ever had. But it's just a bright place. You know, you walk into that library, it's the architecture, it's the people. I really look forward to going to work every day.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you
I
for
know
your
that's-
service.
That's a lot of people can't say that, so
Yeah.
I'm
Thank
glad you
you.
were brave to
Yeah.
apply.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Congrats. That's cool.
All right. So before we move on to our next item, do we need to take a quick break?
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought we might. So we'll go ahead and go for recess? What are we doing? That was called?
Intermission.
Intermission. So we'll take a quick 5-minute break.
Okay, perfect.
We'll go and call the meeting back to order.
Um,
And we are on, let's see, item 11, unfinished business. No,
That's it.
no.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry,
No.
I misnumbered things.
Oh, it's all right. So, do we have any unfinished business?
No.
No unfinished business. And then we have, so we'll move on to new business. And we're gonna have, Ms. Tully go over the mid-year 2025 budget review.
Mhm.
And just a quick note on this process, is, based on previous meetings, we asked to get the budget a little bit clearer, so we appreciate
Less
that.
English.
And then just as a reminder, our role as an advisory board is not necessarily to do a line item review of the budget. That's what the finance department and the city council is for. Is our role is to just have a general cursory knowledge of it and see if there's anything that we would recommend that could help serve the community better, since we are in the role of directly on the ground with the community. Okay, that was all. Thank you very much. And Ms. Tully, you can take it away.
All right. So let's see, we're ready for PowerPoint number 2. Yay. Okay. So as you know, the library is halfway through its budget year. And so I've included a budget performance report in your packet. It's dated June 30th, and I'll go into more detail about that report a little bit later. So next slide. See, a few library budget basics. As you know, the library is a department of the city of Ketchikan, and the city's budget year runs from January 1st through December 31st. We usually start budget planning for the next year in August, and each department submits its draft budget by early September. The budget is then reviewed and revised by the city finance department and the city manager's office before being reviewed by the city council starting in November. And the council approves the city's budget at their mid-December meeting. So next slide. See, so this pie chart, which is very hard to read, shows the library's funding sources. And note, not all of these sources are indicated in the budget performance report. For example, the federal E-rate discount. Each year, the library applies for this discount on public telecommunication services, including public internet access and Wi-Fi. We are currently eligible for a 60% discount in these costs, and the amount in the library's adopted budget for telecommunications is the cost after that discount. Also, Friends of the Library. The Friends is a separate 501c3 organization and is not part of the library. The Friends fundraising efforts, however, do support enhancements to library services. So in 2025, the Friends is helping to fund the Alaska Digital Library and also the new streaming resource Hoopla. The Friends also help fund outreach program supplies and magazine subscriptions and adult program supplies. Because the Friends are a separate organization, they are not reflected in the library's budget. Now, as you can see in this chart, a big chunk of the library's funding comes from the Ketchikan Gateway Borough. That's the orange part of the funding source there. So next slide.
I understand everything that you just said. I'm just curious, where would the public find out, I guess through the Friends of the Library, how much they donate to the library, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's see. So the borough began contributing to library funding after a 1985 vote by borough residents who lived outside the cities of Ketchikan and Saxman, also known as non-area-wide residents, to provide funding to the library in exchange for library services that were equivalent to the services that city residents enjoyed. Now, for the first few years, the borough's contribution was based on the percentage of the total assessed value of property in the borough versus the assessed value of property in the cities of Saxman and Ketchikan. But after just a few years, the city and the borough decided to calculate the borough's contribution based on the percentage of borough residents who live outside of the cities. Next slide. Now, complicating matters is the fact that the Ketchikan Gateway Borough's budget year is a fiscal year, running from July through June, while the city's, of course, goes from January through December. So the calculation of the borough's contribution is roughly, and this is something that the city finance department does, it's half of the library's budget for the current year, plus half of the projected budget for the following year, minus the true up. That is the difference between the library's previous year budget, adopted budget, and the library's actual expenditures for that year. So that is generally what we actually spend is generally about 10% and sometimes more, less than what we budget for. So next slide.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time? I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
quite catch that.
Okay. Let's see. So the calculation of the borough's contribution.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, just
Oh,
the
yeah.
last thing you said
Okay,
about.
the true up. Okay, so the true up is the difference between the library's previous year's budget, so what was approved by council as the budget, and the library's actual expenditures for that year. So basically, we budgeted, say, 1.5 million. We actually spend that year 1.4 million. That's the true up is the adjustment that gets made because what we actually spent was less than our budget.
Sure, and I caught all that. Was the thing after that you said?
The differential that you identified, it was, you said it was roughly
10.
Roughly, yeah, it varies from year to year, but it can be, up to 10% that we spend less than what we budgeted for.
Thank you.
And just to make sure I understand, so if it is 10%, let's say, and so what would go back to the borough would be about 36% of that 10% amount.
Right, whatever the calculation based on
Right.
population.
Based on population,
Yeah.
so they would get okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
And then the city would get the remainder amounts for the. so
we'd
they-
go, yeah, it would just be in the general fund.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so next, yes, perfect, thank you. As you can see in the library budget performance report that we'll talk about shortly, the library's budget is divided into several functions or activities. The first one is grants, and these are grants that the library is either awarded or is expecting to receive. And in 2025, and hopefully in 2026, this would be the State Public Library Assistance Grant. This is a grant that we apply for every year from the state. And any public library in the state of Alaska that applies for this grant receives the same amount of money, $7,000. And we use that $7,000 to enhance our collections budget. So to purchase new books in adult, children, and outreach services. Yes.
Did that grant get left in the budget, or I remember hearing that it might not make the budget cut?
There was quite a controversy last year, 2024, when we got word from the state library that it was going to be cut by quite a bit. They go from 7,000 to like 1,400 or 1,500. However, there were a group of libraries that got together and said, no, we really do need that full 7,000. Not for libraries at our level so much, but there are, I want to say like 82 libraries in the state that are tiny libraries, and their entire budget may be that $7,000. That may enable them to get heat and electricity and to be able to buy a few books. So they would have to close their doors. And so we made the case that it was really important to maintain that level of funding. And so for this year and hopefully for next year, they will do that. And that's particularly really important for the very small libraries in the state. So that's grants. Adult and technical services. This activity pays for staff who work in adult services. That's the wages and the benefits, along with adding to the adult collections, conducting adult services and programs, and most of the backroom operations that Robert does a lot of, to select, acquire, catalog, and process new materials for the adult collection. Outreach services is for staff who work in outreach services, that funds that, plus outreach collection services and programs for elders and also anybody who cannot actually get to the library. Children's services are the staff in children's services, it funds that, and children and teen collection services and programs. We have a First City Libraries activity, and these are all, this pays for charges associated with the online library system that is shared between the public library and the school district libraries. The city and the school district have their own separate formal agreement that includes a calculation of the district's contribution to providing the online library system. It's based on the number of titles in the school district libraries as opposed to the number of titles in our system that are public library titles. And then finally, building operations and maintenance. This pays for the cleaning, maintaining, and repairing of the building and its contents. So next slide, please. You can't read it all, but you all have the budget performance report in your packets. So this report is sorted by activity, and then within each activity, it's sorted by account. The accounts are themselves sorted into categories. So the columns are from left to right, the account number, account description, the adopted budget for that account, and this was the budget that was approved by the council in December. Any budget amendments to the account. This is any transfer or other changes to or from the account after the council's approval. These are mostly small amounts, and they mostly take place toward the end of the fiscal year to transfer funds from one account to another to cover unexpected price increases or unexpected expenses. And then the amended budget column is the budget after any amendments to that budget amount. Current month transactions or any expenses paid from the account this calendar month. Year-to-date encumbrances are any POs that have been created for this account but that have not yet been paid. And then year-to-date transactions, any expenses paid from the account this calendar year. And then the budget minus the year-to-date transactions, the current unspent and unencumbered balance in the account. Percentage used and received, the percentage of the account budget that has been spent already. And then the prior year total is the total amount that was expended in this account the last calendar year. So next slide. Okay, library actuals.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
And if you want to wait until the end, but just because it's on this particular item, I was curious how come the revenue totals were 0 on the document?
Let's see, revenue total. Let me take a look. Don't pay attention. Let's see. There, revenue. Let's see. Revenue totals.
It's on the second to last page of the packet.
Okay. Off revenue total. I'll have to ask city finance. Ask
Thank
them
you.
about that. All right. Okay. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. Okay, so this pie chart are the accounts for the library. They're grouped into several broad categories. And this is for the library's actual expenditures for 2024, which total just under 1.5 million. And the adopted budget for 2024 was a little over 1.6 million. So that's that difference between what the budget is and what we actually spend every year. And the categories are personnel, salaries, wages, and benefits. And as you can see, about 74% of our budget is personnel. Supplies are everything from office supplies to new books, magazines, and other items that we add to the collections, to electronic resources, to supplies for the cleaning and repairing of the building. And then we have contracted and purchased services that includes travel and training. It includes any professional services that we do, building and equipment repair, licenses and fees, our management system, and utilities. Minor capital are furnitures, fixtures, hardware, and individual capital purchases that are under $15,000. Anything over $15,000 is considered major capital. That's a whole separate process, request process. And then interdepartmental charges. They're charges for services by other city departments. We basically have two of these kind of charges. One are IT charges. So our city IT help manage our computers and fix things when they go wrong. And so there's a certain amount that gets paid to the city IT department. And then also the city has liability and property insurance. And those charges for the city are separated out into the various departments. And so our share of that insurance cost comes from interdepartmental charges. So as you can kind of tell from this pie chart, and most of our expenditures are staff. Our regular staff is 11.225 full-time equivalent staff. And that's assuming a 40-hour week for a full-time person. And this is just enough to cover the 58 hours a week that we're open. And next slide. Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
Just so 58 hours a week that you're open, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that staff spends time both prior to and following those open hours
Yes.
every day.
Oh, yeah.
What
Yeah.
would you estimate would be the total staff hours working time? in a given
Oh,
week?
working time. Let's see, 4, 6, 8, 10. Wow. So it would be an additional 14 hours a week. And then,
Time both prior to and following
Yeah.
the open hours of the library.
yeah, it would be prior to. Usually we're able to get our closing stuff done and get out of there. That's really important because we have so many bargaining unit staff. And so it's really important to get them out when they're scheduled to be out. But beforehand, we do have times when people are scheduled to be in before we open.
Thank you.
I just had a question about the major capital projects. I know that you listed a couple in the
Mhm.
packet and
Right.
they're not relevant to 2024, but I was wondering where those are found or if that's all handled by the city separately.
That's handled by the city separately. We, until this year, we have not had any major capital projects. So this coming year for 2026, we are going to be requesting, I think we've requested 3 major projects to be considered. So those 3 are our city building maintenance folks really, really want us to replace and install gutters and snow stops. And they're very worried about the condition of our roof and our gutters. So that's one project. Another project is that our library security system that beeps when people go out and they've got a book that they haven't checked out. That is starting to fail, we have noticed. And so we need to, or we're hoping to get a replacement for those gates. And then the third, and this is the most nerve-wracking one, is the online library system that we share with the school district. We installed that system in 2008. So it is a 17-year-old system. And we believe that a modern system not only would give us additional patron services and features that would be useful for patrons, it would also make the staff's work more efficient. And probably that's what we're hearing is we can do all that and the yearly maintenance cost for that system may be less. So right now, the yearly maintenance for our online system is about $35,000. And so we're hoping, so what we're doing right now is we are putting out a request for information for several major library systems vendors to ask what features they provide, what their estimate would be for actually migrating all our data from existing system to new system, and then what would the ongoing maintenance cost be for that. So we feel like it's time to at least look into that. So those are our major capital projects for, but we hope get approved for the coming year.
Is that's something that goes into like the capital improvement projects with
That
the
was-
special council meeting? coming
Yes,
up?
exactly. Yeah, right.
And are the snow stops, the little fins that are on roofs?
And we've got apparently when
Entire
they
life.
when they built
Wondered what those things were.
when they built the building, apparently they put them on the street side of the library's roof. They didn't put them on the other side. And so I don't know anything about construction. I don't know why that would be a problem, but our building maintenance folks are very aware that that's a problem. And they're seeing the results of that. I think especially in the condition of the gutters. So,
Thank you.
now, any other questions? Okay. Let's see. So next slide. Thank you. So this is our library budget, which looks almost identical to the 2024 library actuals, and basically as far as percentages go. So next slide. All right. So then I chopped up our budget or our expenditures another way. Discretionary versus non-discretionary. So this pie chart represents the percentage of the library's account which are discretionary. And that is the accounts that the library staff have some control over. So our budget for new books and other items is discretionary, since we can decide what items to purchase and what vendors to use to get the best deals. We similarly have control over what program supplies and equipment we purchase. And often we collaborate with other organizations to reduce the library's costs. We also have some control over our professional travel and training, of course. Now that adds up to about 9% of our expenditures last year, with another 2% that are partly in our control. So some expenditures in these accounts are in our control and others are not. These semi-discretionary expenses include salaries for substitute staff, because after all, we could take the route of just closing when staff were out sick or on vacation. We don't want to do that, but we could do that. Fuel for the fireplace. Our mileage gets used a lot by, especially our outreach librarian, but also others who have to go out and about to deliver to homebound folks or to deliver the mail and just go back and forth within the city. But we could find ways to reduce that mileage cost. And our public computer management system, which is really great to have, but conceivably we could decide not to have it. So turning this into money, for the library's 2024 actual expenditures, the amount that is discretionary that the library has control over is about $132,000. The amount that is non-discretionary is about $1.33 million. And the amount that is somewhat discretionary is about $31,000. Now, the non-discretionary part of the budget is determined by union contracts, city council decisions, utility costs, building cleaning and maintenance costs, and system management costs, and how those increase over time. So we just don't have control over all that. So next slide. Okay, trends. So we'll look at some trends in library expenditures over the past 5 years. In personnel, our costs actually went down early in the decade due to the UAS Ketchikan Campus Library's withdrawal from First City Libraries. Before their withdrawal, our library had managed one of their staff members as part of the agreement. And this ended when the agreement ended, and they took over that staff person. So after that initial reduction in cost, personnel costs have increased since 2022 due to negotiated wage increases and increases in the cost of benefits. This has been somewhat mitigated by staff vacancies, but by the end of 2024, we found ourselves fully staffed and we only have one part-time vacancy current. So next screen. See, if we take out the personnel line from the trends chart, it gives us a better indication of trends in other library budget categories. The cost of contracted and purchased services has increased by an average of 5% a year. The cost of building maintenance has increased as well, and we're seeing an increase in the number of maintenance calls and repairs that need to be done as the building gets a little older. So next screen. So we're almost at the end. So what changes do we anticipate for our 2026 budget? Each August is a part of our budget preparation packet for the next year. We receive a budget assumptions document listing what changes we might expect in the coming year in wages, benefits, insurance, and general inflation. And looking back over the budget assumption documents over the past 4 years, there have been significant increases in employee benefits and in property and liability insurance. We do not yet have the budget assumptions document for 2026, but some changes we know about. For instance, we know that there will be a 5% wage increase for bargaining unit staff and possibly for non-represented staff as well if the city council approves that. So other 2026 projects and budget changes include lots of building repair and maintenance. Building's almost 13 years old and some aging is already evident. And I talked a little bit about our major capital projects in the coming year. But another one that I think we dodged a bullet this time, but a little nervous about it. We were having an electrical issue that was extremely difficult to figure out. And I think just yesterday, the electricians at Steelhead finally figured out what the problem was, and it wasn't as extensive as they thought it might be. But these are the kinds of things that we may be running into more often as the building gets older. We're also looking at replacing our security camera system because the security camera footage is really, really horrible. And so we would really like something that we can show to the police when there's an incident and have them actually recognize faces. And then in collections, we're having format shifts. So fewer people are taking out DVDs. We have more in the way of streaming resources to replace those DVDs, and also just the increased cost of items and increased cost of shipping those items. So last, and that is all. That is my whole spiel. So questions?
I know that we are not line item picking apart your budget. Thank you for sharing all of this for us. It's definitely a lot more pleasant than everybody yelling about it in September or October, sorry. I did have some questions about the personnel budget. I know that is not discretionary and you have no control over how much people get paid, but I did notice some things that I just want some clarification on. I made myself a spreadsheet because that's what I do. The outreach expenditures. You said that you increased the full-time employee by 0.1 for outreach.
Yes.
The insurance and other benefits, which were broken down by like sick leave and all of those kinds, those went up 364% and 269%.
That's
respectively.
Because,
Is that because she bumped up to
that's
full
because she
time?
bumped up to benefited.
Okay, that
Yep.
that made sense, but I was
Yep.
like, gosh, because you've
Yeah.
been saying for so long now that you guys are fully staffed and you're so excited about it. So I
Yep.
just wanted to make sure that wasn't something that wasn't making sense to me for other reasons. In the children's personnel, the temp wages are up 139% from last year.
Yes.
And the total already, the year-to-date total is already more than what you guys had last year. Why is that?
Oh, because the council approved our hiring a temporary part-time children's assistant,
Okay,
for, I think, 6 months.
okay, so it's a new position. It's not.
It's well, it's a temporary position.
Mhm.
Was basically to see, how that, position might assist, the children's library, especially during, the summer program, which can get really, really, really busy.
Got it.
So but that is just a temporary position, and, so that's not a regular staff.
Got it. Yeah, I know, and a lot of these things probably like if we had, I know this is the budget performance report is great, but if we had a comparison of the FTEs to go along with it,
Oh.
I could probably decode it myself. But my last question is in the adult and technical services section. There's a 25% decrease in the other services, or the other benefits.
Ah.
Is that because of employee changes? Do we have less benefited employees, or do you know why that went down
My
so much?
understanding is that other benefits, is, things like, vacation time and, sick
Sick leave,
like
yeah, all
existing
that.
sick leave. And, was it 2024 when Kelly left?
I was gonna say, I think it's,
Yeah.
when Kelly left.
Okay.
There's the
Yeah.
longevity pay.
Yeah, so she took a lot of that with
out
her.
on the
Okay.
scale.
She was.
That's kind of what I figured
Yeah.
too, but I didn't know if we were
Yeah.
cutting
No.
budget or cutting benefits or how that worked, because I know that between the unions and everything else, there are many different agreements, and it does get hard to keep track of. But those were just some questions that I had. Everything else, I mean, looks great, and I appreciate all of your wonderful information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nina?
Yeah, so the children's temp, was that partially because Robert's not doing teens? And not doing children's? Is this Robert's fault? That's what you're saying?
Oh, it was more that the children's library staff were finding themselves, having to do a lot more, and that is partially because, Kelly was doing so much with teens. That was one of her passions. Kelly Johnson, she was our office manager, but she was also hugely involved in the teens. And, it didn't make sense to have an operations manager plus, teen services manager. So, Amy, who was the head of, children's services, took that over. And, so, we wanted to experiment with having like a temp during the summer when there's a lot going on with teens and with kids. And just to see how we could work it, with a temporary person. So, yeah.
Just to follow up on that, so there is somebody in that role. That's not the one that's not filled.
Right, exactly. No, we have in adult and tech services, we have a 21-hour-a-week position, which I think has just been advertised.
So can I make a comment? So I really appreciate all of this information a lot. I know that you and I have had some emails back and forth over the last few months. So this is just really great. So it's not just for me and us, it's for the public, right? So one of the things that I really love your slideshow also. And I do appreciate the addition of the discretionary funding, what's discretionary and what's not. But I am concerned that, there's a 17% increase in the budget from the previous year to this year. And I just don't think that with a declining population, even though there's a lot of love for our library, that is something that is going to be sustainable for our community. So I look forward to continued conversations, and I appreciate your information also about like having the information up front about what you're doing to try to preserve costs or ways that you can mitigate things. The comments about partnerships with other community groups, I think is fantastic. And obviously you're getting people to come and go to your programs. But when we look at the reports, right, the annual reports that we looked at in, I think, January this year and January the previous year, there are some areas where there's a decrease in usage. And one of the things that I've heard consistently from you and your team is that you are paying attention to those things and then making adjustments as needed. So those are basically my comments. I don't know if you have any response to that, great, but if anyone else on the board too, like, I don't know. I know that this is not our role as the advisory board, but at the same time it is, right? Because of that is one of the things that is in our powers and duties is to review and make recommendations to the city council regarding the library budget. Is there anything in here that the advisory board, all of your comments, I, took notes on and stuff, like one of the things was the roof. Like that's a concern, and we have an aging building, so maintenance and expense costs are likely going to go up, right? So I really appreciate hearing that you're on top of those things, you're thinking of those things. Is there anything that the advisory board should know or can do regarding specifically I do have to say also, just for the record, that I reviewed the budgets for like the last 10 years, and Pat has done a fantastic job of maintaining a balanced budget. Her team has done a really good job not breaking their budget, and that should be applauded. So good job. But is there anything we can do to help mitigate some of these costs?
I don't know. I think if anybody has any suggestions, it would be, gratefully received. We are, very much committed to being as efficient as possible while still providing the kinds of.
Coffee fund.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Well,
Noted.
I personally think that is a worthwhile line item expense.
But we're trying to be as efficient as possible while still maintaining the level of services that we provide. So that makes it difficult. I mean, I think that's kind of above our pay grade to be determining what cuts we need to make. Once we hear what our budget's going to be, then we can decide, okay, how can we do what we do within this budget. And but I would appreciate any suggestions that the board has. Would be gratefully received.
I would guess the only way to make substantial changes is in the personnel, like cutting hours and cutting personnel, because there's just not a whole lot of the other parts of the budget are such a small percent. Other sections of the budget are such a small percentage. I don't see how you can do it the other way, and I'm not advocating that. I just don't see any other way.
I would just like to say that I personally don't see why we would even have a discussion about reducing the budget at all. I think the libraries did an exceptional job. They provide an extraordinary service to this community. And really it comes down to anytime we're talking about money or the budget, it's how much of value we're putting on a thing that determines it's what we determine it's worth to be. Now, me, as someone who puts a tremendous amount of value in this institution and understands its value to our community, if I could muster up another $5 million a year, I would give them another $5 million a year. And one thing that when we're talking about the budget, we're going a little off track. I would like to just to give my own 2 cents on this. Some things that were noteworthy when I was on the borough assembly was we allocated $200,000 from public money to private hands. We gave a tax subsidy to an industry, and I although I supported it, I was the one that said, I'm not comfortable with tax subsidies in perpetuity. Let's put a sunset on this. So there's all kinds of ways that people find when we see value in something, we can come up with the money. And I think it's important that the library, that we make sure that we look at the total value that this institution provides, and we set an appropriate level of budget dollars so they can provide the service. So that's my input. I again thank you for the information. If anybody else has any other input, Ms. Bishop. No problem. Sorry.
Yeah, just to kind of going off what Ms. Parson said, I kind of agree with the thought that if the budget has gone up like a lot, and like looking at population decreases. Do we foresee the budget kind of continuing to go up? Do we think that that's something that you and your staff are looking at? Or do we think that was kind of just things that happened in that fiscal year that will probably not continue?
I'm not sure. So much of it's out of our control. So much of it is, okay, utilities are going up and wage and benefits are going up and insurance is going up. And so I don't know whether that's gonna continue or whether it's gonna level off. I think it's just, and how the economy is doing, I think is also another, part of that. Yeah, I mean, definitely, that increase is a big increase. And, I'm not sure how to answer, that.
Has there been any more discussion about, I know that the water was changed to commercial before,
Oh, yeah.
about the water meters?
Yeah.
And like that changed the utility expense significantly.
Yeah.
Are the meters gonna help that? Are we still doing meters? Or is there any way we can go to like like city rate as opposed to commercial rate?
Oh, well, I think what was happening, and this was something that, I think the city just hadn't realized, KPU just hadn't realized that we were paying residential rates and we're not residents. So, so really they needed to switch us to commercial. Because I think that's the two categories are residential and commercial.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say that I actually was happy to see that the budget increased for the library. I was excited. And, I'm just kind of making a pessimistic point that the only way to make substantial changes in the future would be to cut personnel. I would hate to see that. I'm really happy that Ketchikan is putting as much money as they do into the library.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the things I actually don't mind paying taxes for.
Anything else?
I was just gonna point out in my interpretation of the budget, because I like numbers, the total for all the personnel services, adult and technical services, outreach services, and children's services, when I added all of those up, what those costs for personnel and benefits were, the total increase from last year's budget is only 14%. But when it's broken down into the different categories, other than the temp wages, because there was a new position, so obviously that's going to go up. The next highest one was insurance is up 24% from last year, and then taxes are 17%. Then the wages themselves only went up 12% across all three. And like, to me, that, I mean, you have your COLA raises and you have your step raises and you have a wonderful staff. So like people should be getting rewarded for their loyalty, and inflation. So I get it. But what Charlie said, unfortunately, our population is declining, but I think in the future that will be reflected in the budget, because you said the percentage of money that you get from the city and the borough is based off the number of residents we have. So as the population declines, so will your revenue or your income, which should also,
I think,
cause the
Yeah.
budget to decline. Expenditures have to go down if the revenue is.
I think the city, portion of the budget is not based on,
Resident.
right, so it's
Okay.
not as though they say, okay, per resident, there's so much money that goes to
Oh,
the
that's
library.
just in
I think it's
proportion
just-
for the borough.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but still, I mean.
Oh, I
it's-
know. I totally get your point.
I don't want to belabor this, but I really appreciate your point, because I'll say insurance has been a
Mhm.
beast. It's in my world in real estate, like this is killing people.
Mhm.
It's actually pricing some people out of their homes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we did, and I don't know if this is something that you guys can do, but this is part of why we have the board, right? So we can have these conversations, not you specifically, but maybe the city. Like, I don't know if there's any other insurance options, but I just changed my homeowner's insurance and I saved over 35% by switching my provider this year. So I like that's why I asked the question of what are things that, could help mitigate some of these increase in expenses. I don't know if that's an idea or something that had been discussed.
If I may speak to
Sure,
that,
absolutely.
I will tell you that you won't be surprised to learn that the city is wrestling the same beast and
Mhm.
pursuing every avenue for redress that they can find.
Awesome. Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
And then,
insurance.
were there anything that we thought, based on, anything else that we think the library could use, that we think could better serve the community? That isn't represented, that we haven't seen? I don't have anything, but does anybody have? Yes, ma'am.
I have not stopped thinking about your digitizing the
Oh,
newspaper.
my
Yeah.
goodness. Oh, believe me neither.
And so I want to do whatever I can to help support that project moving forward. I talked to my daughter Ava about it last week. I was like, they said it was going to be like $400,000, and she's like, for what? And I was like, no, because you have to take the time. But then she proceeded to tell me that she was able to access all of Sitka's newspapers, and she's like, it was amazing and wonderful. So
I know, I have to circle back to that.
Yeah.
And see what the possibilities are now, because, it may be possible to do it for a lot less than that.
well, and then
So-
maybe, I mean, I feel like that is definitely, something that the community would get behind outside of just a
It would-
library budget item.
Absolutely, it would be absolutely incredible.
Have you ever thought about maybe reaching out to the museum and seeing if they wanted to go into a partnership? I know they have all of the yearbooks digitized,
Right,
which is
exactly.
really also fun to look at.
Right,
Um,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
all of the yearbooks up to like
1970?
2020 are
Hmm.
online. Just go to the Ketchikan Museum website
Mhm.
or just Google Ketchikan yearbooks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could definitely, certainly as far as a fundraising effort, because I think it
Yeah.
would take, in addition to,
It takes a village.
yeah, exactly, it would definitely take a village. But it would be incredible. It would be like a real game changer as far as genealogy, family history, local history. There is so much in those papers.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, just need to find the time.
Sure, that's all.
Robert, you're up, bud. Get those newspapers online.
In your spare time.
If our population does decline,
Mhm.
that doesn't necessarily mean the people walking through the door of the library is going to decline. And I know you do monitor people,
Mhm.
and I think that's gonna be a very important issue in the future. It could be if the economics of this town take a nosedive, people will want the library more.
Right.
So I hope we don't lose sight of that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Any other comments, suggestions? Impassioned talking? Okay,
Thank
we'll
you
go
all.
ahead and thank you very much, Pat.
I guess I have a
yes,
question.
yeah.
Because again, I know, is there anything like, do we need a motion or this is gonna come back to us in the next meeting?
Let's see, in October, we'll have submitted our first draft of the library's budget for 2026. And at that point, at least over the past couple of years, it's out of our hands at that point. So we can definitely report on what we submitted, what we've heard so far from the city finance. And also maybe an update on the capital projects and how the council has looked on those. So,
I kind of think it would be reasonable for the board to make a statement like we did last year. I know that they said that we don't need to do that, but I read this and it says review and make recommendations, even if the recommendation is no recommendation. Is it appropriate now to ask that be added to our next meeting?
To,
Because to bring back the draft budget
mhm,
and the CIP
right,
information.
right.
And then the board says, we reviewed it and
Here's
we,
our recommendation.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we don't have any recommendations, or here's our recommendations, or
Mhm.
please give them the world, whatever the board
I
decides.
think that's reasonable. Sure, why not?
I feel like that
Yeah.
would just help check the
Kind of close that loop.
port, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I will bring back a report to the October meeting.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. And the next item was brought forth, Ms. Bobars. I know that she had some specific things that she wanted to cover. I don't know if anybody else had anything anything that they specifically wanted to look at. So I wanted to see if we did, we can open it up for discussion. But since this was hers and she's not here, want to see if we wanted to move it to the next meeting and she wanted to cover it. So she's the one that brought it up. So what do you all think?
The only issue I can think of is what day we have our meetings. Because now we have the permission
Right.
from the city council to choose the date we
Right.
meet, but we haven't come up with anything there.
I did have a suggestion on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Because I read through that and that was because remember one of our meetings we talked about, we're just gonna keep it what it is this year for the
Mhm.
2025 calendar year. So I'm totally fine postponing this and waiting until Kate gets back. And my suggestion to that was to say whoever the new board is that's gonna be appointed between October and January, let them set their annual meeting calendar in January was gonna be my suggestion. And we still have the ability now, like if we wanted to change the October meeting, we could. Because of
Yeah.
the code change, right? I'm not necessarily in favor of that. I'm not opposed to that. I'm willing to go with the will of the board. But that was my suggestion to address that was whoever's on the board in January, they're the ones that set the meeting schedule for the year.
Pat, I'm under the understanding I'm here till March 31st,
Yes.
and then the new people take over
Mhm.
in April.
Yeah, so
Right, but you have to have some continuity, right? And
Yeah.
you have to have
Yeah.
whoever's gonna be the chair in January is likely gonna be there until or not. I don't know. That was my thought.
I think, what was it I think this past year, we did the, officer, elections in April.
Mm-hmm.
And we could also do, if we want to make any changes in our meeting schedule, we could do that in April, or we could do
I
it in
think that's
January.
what we
I don't think we
discussed.
don't have to do it in April.
I think that's reasonable.
So should we move to just make this the next meeting? Move this item to the next meeting?
I move to
Or-
defer
A second to the next meeting.
the next meeting.
Yeah. So Kate can be here for the conversation.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion?
I did want to just say that it's not atypical at city council anyway, if there is a motion brought forward or an item brought forward by a member who's not present to defer until they can be, just since they were the motivator behind it, we want to be able to have their input. And I did have one, not that we're discussing it because we're deferring it, but I was a little puzzled as to the need for the item, any changes we make be formally approved by council, since the bylaws themselves state that this board can make those changes. So perhaps, if I may add to that deferral, some just
Clarification.
request for
Yep,
clarification on that.
absolutely.
Because I don't believe the council approval is necessary to any changes that we make. to the bylaw.
Okay.
There are 2 pages here, the bylaws themselves. I think that we can change those, but there is in the library advisory board in the code,
Mhm.
for the city code, there's still a few, things that are consistent with what's written in the bylaws that I think she wanted to
I
change.
see.
That are, I mean, where it says, in the code, section F, 5 members of the board shall constitute a
Ah.
quorum. That needs to be updated to 3, like she
Thank you.
highlighted here. Just minor things, but, I mean, we've been doing just fine thus far, figuring things out. So I think deferring till Kate can be here to clarify all of that, I think is just fine.
Then with, what was the term? With approval?
By acclamation.
By
We-
acclamation?
Since it's a motion made, we should take it.
Okay. All right, take a-
Okay. I'm getting the right screen here. Okay. See, Sherry,
Yes.
let's see, Charlie,
Yes.
hey, Diane,
I,
see, June,
I,
Sophia,
yes.
Nina. Hi. Jack,
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
unanimous.
And then I wanted to see if the board would be comfortable with moving items. I should have mentioned this at the beginning, so I apologize. Swapping 13 and 12, so future agenda items are next. because I did have an item I would like to present, and there may be input that the board would like to add as part of that discussion on their own part. So any objection to moving those? Yes, ma'am.
Are you just wanting to move that tonight, or do we
Oh,
want to
no.
permanently change that on the agenda?
Just tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, so next would be future agenda items and then board member comment.
Oh, you want
Oh,
to
I
say
see.
something before we all
Yeah.
thank you? Is that?
I mean, sure, why not?
I wouldn't mind switching that permanently. That's not a bad point. Yeah.
Actually, I kind of think it would make more sense personally to go to swap them.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what do you guys think?
I would agree.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
tend to our business and then make our comments and that'd be done.
Shall we, does that require a motion? I feel like that
I
doesn't.
don't, I think that's
Yeah.
bookkeeping.
Yeah, so let's do that.
Okay.
I don't see any.
Yeah, so,
By acclamation.
so then we'll go and move on to future agenda items. So I want to open up the floor to anybody that would like to add anything, Ms. Dahl?
Yeah, I looked at this, operating rules and bylaws, and I'm racking my brain to think, I believe we did consider this at one point, as we don't know where the document came from. It is not dated. It is not signed by anyone. I would like to discuss, first of all, we have the city council. That's our marching orders. That we wouldn't need bylaws. So I'd like to discuss it at the next meeting. Because I think that the decision made at that time was this is null and void. It has no bearing on how we do business. If anybody has any, contrary information, fine, but I would like to discuss it next meeting.
Anything else?
I would just make note for the record that I think Charlie's request would technically fall under. future
It would,
agenda
yeah.
items Regarding a comment from the library advisory board or a recommendation. regarding the budget.
Yeah, good.
Please and
Just
thank you.
acknowledge
Yeah.
that as such.
Right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Could I add to that? I know that the capital improvement projects are gonna be dealt with before October. Is it too much to ask that we get to see those documents well before the meeting agenda comes out for October?
Oh, for October, sure.
Maybe.
Sure. I
you
mean,
could-
I have very little on the system migration. The looking into different online library. But I do have more information for the gutters and for the gate replacement that I can absolutely share.
Yeah, I'd
So,
like
and I'll
to.
share
see
the rest
more
of it
about
as
those
I get them.
projects.
Yeah, as I
That'd
get
be
them.
great. Thank you.
Okay, vendor requests, okay.
You can ask a question, yeah.
I forgot to ask, is there gonna be a youth chess tournament?
Oh, there was.
Oh, there
I think
was?
yes,
Okay,
there
I just
was.
missed it. It was
I
just
think it-
separated in the program. The adult one was in June.
Yes, the
Okay.
adult one was in, I think June 28th.
Okay.
I think the youth one was,
End of May.
2 weeks before.
yeah, 2 weeks before the
It was in the
14th,
beginning of
June 14th.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, what I'd like to do is I actually brought in materials. This is something I'm pretty passionate about, and anytime I get to something that's very passionate, I try to go based on purely what does the data say, so I don't get too wrapped up in my emotions. So yeah, I'll actually pass that down, pass that down, pass that down, and then I'll explain why I have a sense of urgency now. And where, okay. And my recommendation. So one of the things that is, that a lot of people don't know about me is I did work, in, doing my part to develop a children's advocacy center. What those are is those are, places where children who had been abused, a space for them and their caregivers to provide guidance, to provide, to do proper interviewing to ensure that these children, that their voices are heard and perpetrators of abuse and neglect are properly held accountable. So as part of that job, I took the job because it was already a passion of mine, but as part of that job, I got to see a lot of the inner workings of the systems in place that support harmed children and the circumstances that increases the likelihood of a child being harmed. And so what I put in front of you are the risk factors for abuse and neglect, and this includes all forms of abuse that a child can endure. And some of the things I want to highlight and why I think it's important we have this discussion is that a lot of the things in here, if you look at the risk factors, poverty is a significant contributor to harm done to children, as well as access to education, reduce access to education, reduce access to healthcare, being in a culture of violence. All of these things increase the likelihood of harm to children. And one of the things that is, when it comes to community risk factors on the second page, that it again mentions high rates of poverty. There is the one of the last, the third bullet point from the end, communities with few activities for young people. And so that includes our rec centers, that includes extracurricular activities, that includes the parks, and that includes the library. And so when we have a network of services available to families and available to young people, it helps alleviate some of the pressures that our families go through, and that helps reduce the likelihood of harm. But the other thing I want to point out, if you look at the bottom of page 2, there's a little blurb again that talks about family poverty. And it talks about how child maltreatment, basic things like housing, food, utilities, medical care, these all greatly increase the likelihood of a child being harmed. And one of the things that I'm concerned about is a lot of families now are. And one of the points is actually that leads to it is, and I'm sorry, I should have highlighted it, but there's a comment in here about regressive tax policies, regressive things that move money out of the hands of your average family and move it into, let's say, the hands of people who have an overabundance of wealth. And my concern is that that as we are making policies and decisions, that we're not paying enough attention to the impact at this level. And I think that the library itself has a great opportunity in kind of building off of your community event of setting aside or seeing if there's a way to designate a spot specifically for families, specifically for just resources, books that are for children in crisis, books on how to manage these things. And so I wanted to bring forth as a way, because I believe that any resources that are out there are going to have to be really creative to offer more for sometimes less. And so that's probably why I'm so passionate about the conversation around the budget, because there's I think there's so much that this library does, but I think that we have to get creative and try to find a way to do a little more, because I believe it's going to be helpful to our family. So ultimately what I wanted to bring forth, and I wanted to give you guys this information so you can see what's informing my passion and why I want to bring it forth, is something that is specifically for the family, specifically for children, that it's always a place where people can go to reduce the likelihood, or to give them more resources and reduce the likelihood of harm being done. I know that about 10% of the kids in our public school are couch surfing. I just think that anything that can be done to further service our families and young people, if it can be done, I'm all for it. So again, this is So this is the information that, some of the information I provided was provided by the Center for Disease Control and the National Institute of Health, of where I got the information. If anybody would like to look at it, there's also the Zero Abuse Project and the National Children's Association are also great resources. So yes, ma'am.
Can we take 1 5-minute recess to read this?
Absolutely.
Comments?
Yep. So, and anything else before we move to a quick recess?
Are we having a discussion about this?
We can.
I'm not really interested in that today. I'm sorry. Like
That's all.
I think this is great, but laying the pages on the table, what you just said sounds great. I'm in support.
Sure.
I don't know. We can totally take a break. I'm fine
Well,
with that,
yeah.
but if this is gonna get into a topic discussion, I feel like it's a little bit out of order because it wasn't on the agenda, it
Sure.
wasn't published, and I would have liked to prepare and have this information before the meeting so that I
Yeah.
could maybe speak to it if that's the
Right.
route you wanted to go.
Yeah, no problem. That's why I put it forth for a future agenda item. So
Okay.
that's why.
Okay.
And there was a request to take a quick recess to look at it. I'm comfortable with that, but the reason why I handed out a copy is so you do have a chance to look at it and then help inform your decision on if we do need a motion in the future, kind of where I'm getting my data, why I'm passionate about it, and why I think it's a worthwhile conversation. So if that works, I was gonna just put it on for future agenda. Does that work for
No,
you?
me and Sophia are just dying. We just need to go.
Okay. Then we'll go and take I'm sorry, misunderstood. We'll take a quick recess for a quick bathroom break and then we'll wrap up and see if anybody has anything else. And my future agenda item, anybody else have anything they would like to add for a future item? All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you indulging me on that topic. And next we have board member comments, I believe, right? Is that where we're at? Yep, so we'll go ahead and start with you, Ms. Thomas.
Right?
Comments.
Comments. So recently I got to go to this conference and it's called AFTACON. It's based on the arts, and surprisingly they had several conference meetings and seminars about the libraries. It was a really big topic actually with the libraries and arts in partnership. And they asked questions about, like what does your library do for art and things. I got to brag a little bit. But one of the really great parts was one of the conferences the former director of the IMLS, and she knew us. She knew the Ketchikan Public Library because we have put in for awards many, many, many times. And that was really cool to be one of the only people from Alaska in this conference with mostly lower 48 people, and they knew our library. And she came up to me after and said, "Oh, you're Ketchikan," and proceeded to tell me what a great library we had after reading our submission that I helped write a letter for. And that was amazing. That was really amazing. The other conference I went to had the ALA, and they also knew us, but they knew us because we defeated one of the ballot measures. And so we are quite known in the library community outside of Alaska. And it was just a really eye-opening experience of what presence we have and that people are looking to us positively for what we do. And it was a great feeling to represent Ketchikan Public in a sort of way. But it's noticed and we're doing great work. And I just wanted to share with you guys how great our library is, but you already know that. So yep, that's my word comments. Also to go about the budget, I hate spending money personally, but at the same time, feel like snow stops and gutters are a lot of like maintenance, and you're gonna like do maintenance on your cars so you don't, fall apart or you lose your roof. And so I'm not as concerned about some of these projects. I think they're a long time coming, especially I didn't know that we had no capital projects ever request, and I feel like kind of do for a little bit of money would be nice. I know Friends of the Library have helped with some things. And we actually talked about it, Friends of Mine, with the gate counter. And I didn't know because it was inefficient in measuring patrons, but I didn't know that it was actually failing for security. And that's concerning because then if you lose books, you have to buy more books. And sometimes you have to spend money to save money. And a new system would be really, really nice. And I support that. So those are my comments. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
Well, I'm feeling very positive because I've heard lots of good acts done by good people. Makes me so proud of our library. But I think about COVID, it was so hard for me not to gloat when I talk to my friends down south. You know, they're like, our library's closed, you can't get a book to save your soul. And I'm like, well, we have access to books. And it's just that kind of going beyond what's expected that I think is really so typical of a library. So, thank you, Pat and staff.
I apologize, I'm gonna make this as quick as possible. So first off, apologies for not being at the last meeting. I also apologize to Pat. My communication is very limited. I had about like 15 minutes every morning to really check my email and give a response to Pat on things. So thank you for your patience on that. And then I unfortunately got very busy in the last month or so that I was still in DC, and I was not able to put out a pre-summer survey as I would have hoped to the teenage population. I'm going to be doing a beginning of school one, kind of more of a PSA about library services included in the survey. The B&D gift card, $25 gift card, random draw for those who submitted seemed to be a really good way to get involved. The last survey we did had like 150 responses, which for teenagers who hate surveys is actually pretty good. So I was really excited about that, and I plan to do same gift card again, maybe possibly 2. I'm still kind of seeing about it, deciding that. But I'm hoping to do a beginning of school one. I was not able to do an end of school one. And then I have a little bit, I was hoping to have more, but I got incredibly sick last week and was kind of taken out for the count. And so I did not have like a paper prepared that I could give to Pat to put in the packet. But just a little bit of my 2025-2026 school year plans. I'm trying to increase visibility and outreach a lot. I'm specifically working with like all of our AP teachers to do a like first week of school, kind of coming in, reminding what the services are for kids, the study rooms, things like that. Hoping the teachers can provide dates for those larger assessments that might come, thinking about like going to the like scheduling the smaller craft room, study sessions, things like that, kind of helping in each individual class possibly schedule those, and kind of putting the ideas into their heads like that first week of school so that they know what is offered and what they can use. And then as well as the AVID program at K-High, it's best has been described to me as a program for students who might not be so focused on college readiness and more so passing their classes and making an impact on their community, and doing that in a way that can help them build into like strong people in our community. And so I really want to reach out to that class specifically and kind of make sure that they know about library services as well, because they know that it's not aimed at struggling students per se. I heard that in an email, and I don't think that was the best representation, but for kids who need extra quiet spaces to study, I think good opportunity to reach out to them. And it will be as well included in class act lessons for freshmen. We did a little bit of that with some classes, but it wasn't put in the curriculum. That will be different this year. I'm working with the counselors to have it included in lessons when it comes not just to finals, but also just throughout the first semester that they do class act. And then I really want to make sure I do more outreach to Revilla. I don't attend Revilla, and so I find myself out there much less. And so I want to make sure that if I'm providing services to K-High, they're also being equally provided to Revilla. And that's a big priority for me this year. And I hope that I can get out there within the first few weeks of school to also offer the same kind of things that I'm going to be into AP classrooms, but as well to Revilla. And then more to the point of this meeting, I am in favor of proactive larger spending so that we might reduce spending in the next 5-10 years. If we're looking at population decreases, possible economic effects, anything that we might be seeing or hearing that could happen, the possible like idea of maybe spending a little bit more money in the next budget or then budget after that so that we might save money. I'm personally for that. I think within reach and in a way that does not exceed like responsibility of the library. And so that was kind of my topics for this meeting. I also think everything I've seen this summer at the library has been wonderful. I've been out there quite a bit. I'm in the midst of college applications and such, so I've been camping out in the library. Some days Pat's seen me there. I think I've seen her like for 4 hours straight some days, and she's just like every time she walks by, I'm like, I know I'm still here. But I've seen a lot at the library, and I've been really, really impressed with interactions I've seen with people. The front counter, the like circulation desk, always very friendly, always nice. I very much appreciate everyone who's been working at the library. And I think that specifically like the children's activities, I've just been so in awe of everything that's happened. Specifically that community event. I thought there were so many people there that were all enjoying it. And I felt like I had not remembered a time I'd seen so many people at the library since like the Harry Potter days and how packed that has been. So that community event almost rivaled that for me, and I thought that was quite impressive to put on this year, and I would love to see it again within a manageable amount of time. But yeah, those are my comments for this meeting. So thank you.
Mr. Rice, we're lucky to have you. That's it for me.
And I just want to say thank you again for the library staff, everybody, just really tremendous, all that you do, and how many places you're able to go and people you're able to assist. I'm always in awe every time I have one of these meetings, so thank you to everybody. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to thank staff also for the information and the presentation and the timely review of all of this stuff, and also to Mr. Rice. I'm excited that you're so excited because now it makes me more excited about the library. So thank you all very much.
I'm gonna start out by thanking Jack for putting that code change through with the council. I know you said it went unopposed, but that was still something extra that you had to do. And thank you for finding a co-sponsor. Someday when I'm elected to the school board, I'll appreciate having meetings not on Wednesday nights. Sorry, that was a little plug. Robert, thank you. Your presentation was very intelligent, and I appreciate you running the library efficiently with our excellent librarians. Your presentation was awesome, very captivating. And Pat, thank you for just having such wonderful employees that get up here meeting after meeting and run us through. You know, Rebecca did it last meeting. Robert did it this one. We've had Amy, who was before that. And every time it's just, you know, it's so wonderful to see not only the excitement that your staff has for what they're doing, but, you know, it just reaffirms everything, you know, us sitting at this table, like you guys, you know, are doing the best you can, you know, and with what you have to work with, but you have great things to work with. You have wonderful people, and it really, you know, is just, it's so refreshing to see something that some people might consider like, oh, library stuff, you know, but you guys, you make it fun, and it really is great. So, you know, if that budget is going to go up 12% because of inflation and everything else, then so be it, because you guys are doing a great job with everything. And
I'll pass that on.
yeah, and my last thing, back to the very beginning, Friends of the Library. Maybe you guys should do your book collections on like Mondays so we can save the good weather for the Saturdays. If you're gonna curse the town with bad weather, let's save it for a Monday, not on the weekends, okay? I'm just kidding. That's all I got. Thank you, everyone.
I'm just gonna add a ditto to those comments.
Great, thank you. Ms. Pat, is there anything you wanted to offer?
No, just thank you all very much. You know, I know this is a lot to do after you've been, you know, after a long day. So thank you for your ideas and your passion and your compliments, which I will pass on. So thanks.
All right, thank you very much.
I move to adjourn.
We'll do that. Second. Go home. We also